Okay.
Perfect.
Threshing. The next malacha is threshing. Prohibitions. Extracting a substance from its organic whole of which it forms a part. Threshing the husks of grain to obtain the kernel. Beating flax or cotton to obtain the seed. Extracting honey from the honeycomb. Squeezing fruit and milking a cow. And so this is for Shlomo of Shifra Simcha Bat Yeta and All Cholim Meklal Israel. So there are 6 things which are prohibitions, which are considered threshing. Okay, a Gentile may be asked to milk a cow. If no Gentile is present, the cow may be milked in order to relieve it from pain, but the milk may not be used. One may use an electric milking machine which is operated by a present timer, and in such circumstances the milk may be consumed after Shabbos. One may not squeeze juice from fruits. When eating a grapefruit, care should be exercised not to scoop the juice with a spoon from the flesh of the fruit. Leniency may be applied to squeezing fruits if one wishes a solid to absorb their juice. For example, a lemon may be squeezed onto sugar, fish, or salad. However, one should avoid this with grapes or olives, since they are primarily grown for their wine and oil. Sucking fruit is permitted. Okay, squeezing man-made containers such as detergent bottles is permitted. It is permitted, however, to squeeze fabrics. It is prohibited, however, to squeeze fabrics. The shelling of peas is not permitted unless it is for immediate consumption and it is done in small quantities. One is permitted to crack nuts if it is for immediate consumption. A nutcracker or hammer may be used for this purpose. And the last point, a woman may not squeeze out her breast milk in order to store it. Excess milk which causes discomfort may be squeezed to waste. If a serious urgency arises and the baby cannot suck from its mother, one may squeeze out the milk or a breast pump may be used. Okay.
Okay.
Threshing, okay.
All right. Kev, that was well done. We needed to learn.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Listen, I didn't bring my Gemara here, so I'm going to go. We might not cover the full 40 minutes, but whatever we cover is better than nothing. In my haste to get to Kevin, I didn't bring the Gemara. I'm sorry, guys. So let me just see what I can do within that period. Also, in terms of Derech Hashem, I never brought it here, but what the Ramchal ended up saying is that, look, the book of Derech Hashem doesn't really deal with demonstrable proofs in nature and its phenomena. I mean, we've gone from, if you have a look, science has changed. We've gone from, I don't know if you guys know, I mean, we've gone from astrology, studying of the stars, to astronomy. We've gone from metallurgy, where people would turn lead into gold, into actual physics. So even science itself has changed from the Ramchal's time, and before that of the Middle Ages. The Ramchal was towards the Renaissance period, Mozart's period, etc. And we've come a long way since then. So he doesn't deal with the concepts that can be deduced from scientific evidence. He's mainly interested in proving God from the point of tradition. So that's the authentic framework at which it's going to be presented, because in his times, he was even saying that there could be, that there's definitely scientific proof. You must remember that the Ramchal was an ophthalmologist, and he dealt with lenses and lenses not just for the eyes in terms of sight improvement, but also telescopic lenses. So, to deal with the astronomy as opposed to astrology. So obviously he was a scientist in and amongst himself, even though that's not the basis of Derech Hashem. So apologies, I don't have the book. So what we discussed last time in Bava Kama was very straightforward. Is we said that at the end of the day, we learned a very important principle, that the money gets refunded, the portion that's due to the original owner, only according to Rabbi Yishmael. Because again, the principle of Rabbi Akiva is very straightforward. What's the principle? Is that they're partners and they share in the benefits and they share in the losses. So in that particular case, if we go according to not Rabbi Meir, but we're going according to Rabbi Shimon, he would hold that the original owner isn't done after the first person he damaged confiscated the ox. That's only according to Rabbi Yishmael. The essence of Rabbi Shimon, who brings Rabbi Akiva, is that he deals with a case where they're all partners in the carcass should there be excess, and even if the ox was confiscated by Kevin, Gavin would still be, as the original owner, responsible. Why? Because Gavin is a partner. Now, that works badly for Kevin as well. Say Kevin had never kidnapped the ox as the custodian, but he's owed money by Gavin, who was the original owner. But in Gavin's care, the ox went out and damaged me and Arthur, as well as, in that case, Kevin. Then at the end of the day, even though Kevin isn't responsible for that, and it's Gavin's problem, if Arthur had to seize the ox and take it to court, they would all be proportionally sharing in both the profits and the losses. So there's advantages and disadvantages to both Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael. So is that clear so far? I mean, it's pretty straightforward, nothing that complicated. So we start on 36b2, and the discussion is that Rava explained that the Mishnah's case is where each successive victim seized the animal as surety of payment and was rendered a custodian over the animal. But the Gemara now takes another view. And so too, when Ravin came from Eretz Israel to Babylonia, he said in the name of Rav Yochanan, the rabbis of the Mishnah approached this ruling as one of custodial negligence. That is, in the Mishnah's case, the victims incurred liability by assuming custodial responsibility. So what that's saying is that the ruling, it refers to the ruling obligating the earlier victims to forfeit their half payment damages to the later victims. So the Mishnah follows Rabbi Yishmael. And what Mishnah are we talking about? The first Mishnah according to Rabbi Meir. The second Mishnah according to Rabbi Shimon follows Rabbi Akiva, it would seem. The victims are not obligated, well, they're obligated not because they're partners, but because they're custodians and liable for damage perpetrated by their wards. That's according to Rashi. So I just want to share the Mishnah one sec, guys. Sorry, I'm just sharing this on the screen. It's going to help. Just to refresh you. Give me a sec, guys.
I think I've got a printed page for you. I'm to bring it to you, David. Hold on 1 second.
Okay, I've got it. It's okay. I've got it. Kev?
This one here.
That's it. Okay, thank you. That's going to help me a ton. Thanks, man. Kevin just brought a physical page to me. It seems so funny to see Kevin laugh. All right. Thank you, Kevin. All right. So I just wanted to repeat, to explain to you where we're holding here. So the first part of the Mishnah is Rabbi Meir. If an ox gores 4 or 5 oxen, one after another, while remaining a tam, its owner pays the last of the gored oxen as half payment damage from the body of the ox that gored. The last victim is the first to be paid. And if the ox that gored is worth more than this payment, the excess is returned to the owner of the one that came before this one, meaning the owner of the second to last to be gored. We did say, guys, that was dependent upon the amounts to be settled, because what really happens in reality is it's not the second to last to be paid. It's the second to last on condition of amounts working according to the charts we discussed last time. Because what happens is the last person gets paid, the original owner gets paid first, whatever the excess is, he gets to keep it. He goes home. His penalty that he should have paid to the first damaged party gets confiscated by the court. then the court takes that and immediately settles the last person because the last victim hasn't damaged anybody further. Then it goes back to the first victim, second and third, not exactly according to what it says here, in terms of seeing what transpired. It happens to be that the second to last can be paid if it's a homogeneous case. What do we mean by a homogeneous case, Gavin? That it's two, the attacking ox is worth what? 200 zuz. The damaged dead ox is worth 200 zuz, and every damaged party has the same sort of penalty along the line. Then it's easy to go last, second to last, third to last, fourth to last. And if the ox at gored is worth more than the payment for the last two oxen, the excess is returned to the owner of the one that came before this one, the owner of the third to last ox to be gored, for example. This is the rule. He was damaged later benefits. He is first to be compensated. To be compensated. That's what it means. The last to be damaged is the first to be compensated. Now that that's familiar in our heads, the Gemara says, all right, so what we learn from this, bottom line, is that as far as Rav is concerned, Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael to Babylonia. He said in the name of Rav Yochanan, the rabbis of the Mishnah approached this ruling as one of custodial negligence. This, in the Mishnah's case, is where the victims incurred liability by assuming custodial responsibility. So why does it bring this forward? Guys, why does it bring this forward? Because it's criticizing Rav's approach. It's criticizing Rav's approach. Does everybody remember what Rav's approach is or not?
David, sorry, I can't contribute much today. Sorry.
Okay. So Rav is what we've been dealing with up until this point, that basically the last that he was saying, Rav just made one point, Gavin, and that was this Mishnah actually is in accord with Rabbi Yishmael, okay, because the damaged parties are seen as creditors of the Tam's owner. And he was saying, look, so I've got an insight for you. The reason that it talks about the last damaged victim being paid first and second to last and third to last is we're talking about cases where subsequent victim, each successive victim sees the ox as a collateral. And therefore, whoever seized it is the one that gets paid, and it has nothing to do with, it has absolutely nothing to do with a contradiction to Rav Yishmael. It doesn't mean that the creditor that, or the damaged party that got injured first gets paid. It's whoever sees the ox first, that takes precedence. So the Gemara says, okay, that makes sense. So how do you explain it? And he unraveled it. Now we've got a contradiction, okay? It doesn't seem like a contradiction because it seems that when you had a case of Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael to Babylonia, he said in the name of Rav Yochanan, the rabbis of the Mishnah approached this ruling as one of custodial negligence. So far that seems according to Rava, but now there's a problem because the Gemara is challenging Rava's approach. It says, look, I understand how you've interpreted the Mishnah thus far, because if you're saying it's being in accord with Rabbi Yishmael, how do you reconcile the second part of the Mishnah? And I'm going to read the second part of the Mishnah and share the screen with you because you can see that that's not according to Rabbi Yishmael. And I want you guys to try and pick up why that is. Is that okay with you guys? I want you guys just to think. I want to see also how good your Chazorah is. Okay, well, Kevin, will the Honorable Rav Amayoth will read from Rav Shimon.
Rav Shimon says, the owner of the ox that gored and the victim are both liable to pay for the damage. How so? If a tam ox with 200 zuz gores an ox with 200 zuz, and the carcass is worth nothing, this one, that is the victim, takes the money, that is 100 zuz of the tam's value in payment. And this one, i.e. the owner, takes the money of its value. If the ox again gores another ox worth 200 zuz, owner of the last ox gores takes the money of the tam's value. And those preceding him, i.e. the owner of the tam and the first victim, this one takes 50 zuz and that one takes 50 zuz. If the ox again gores another ox with 200 zuz, the owner of the last ox gored takes the money. And the one preceding him, i.e. second last victim, takes 50 zuz. And the first two, i.e. the owner of the tam and the first victim, takes a dinar of gold, i.e. 25 zuz apiece. Each successive victim bears part of the responsibility for further gorings. Therefore, each must pay. Sorry, you want to go back there? Each must pay a portion of the new claims.
Okay, now I want to ask you guys something. If I switch pages, can you see me switching pages?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so each person must pay. All right, so what do you notice there? All right, guys, can I give it to you? Can I explain it to you? Because
I think I know it, but I'm not in a good state. It's got to just go ahead, David. I'll explain it. Go ahead.
No, I'm happy if you explain it, Gav. I've got no problem.
No, I'm dazed. I think I'll get it properly.
All right, all I'm saying is, guys, if you read the wording of Rabbi Shimon, it can't be according to Rabbi Ishmael for one very, very simple reason. What it's saying is that, look, Gavin has got an ox. He's the original owner. I'm sorry to use names. It's just easier. Gavin's the original owner. He's got an ox worth 200 zuz. Okay? He gores my ox worth 200 zuz. His ox. My ox is dead. The carcass is worth nothing. So fine. Then Rabbi Akiva says we sort out it there and then. So it says that Gavin, the original owner, keeps his 100 zuz because the animal's worth 200, and he gives me 100 zuz because it's a tam. And for my 200 zuz damage, he only owes me 100 zuz. So I can't keep his 200 zuz animal. I'm giving him a manna change, which is 100 zuz. And I keep a manna. Does that make sense so far? Okay, so far, this doesn't sound like Rabbi Akiva or Rabbi Ishmael. They both agree on this point. We're going to have a problem now, because if the ox gores again, then what happens is, say the ox gores Kevin's ox, and Kevin's ox is worth 200 zuz, okay? Then Gavin and I all of a sudden are partners. Me as the first victim and Gavin as the original owner. And now we owe Kevin 100 zuz for his 200 zuz dead ox. So I've got to take 50 zuz, and Gavin has to take 50 zuz and settle Kevin for his debt. Now, really, we're not at the Rav Yishmael part, because why is it Gavin's responsibility if I've taken custodianship of the ox in order to get paid? And let's just say I get my money from Gavin, and he's got that goring ox back, but he's just given me 100 zuz cash or whatever. Then why is Gavin responsible? Does that make sense? Now let's just take Arthur in the picture. There's me, there's Kevin, and there's Gavin. Now, what happens is that, say Kevin seizes the ox, okay, as the custodian, and I've got 50 zuz changed from my 100 zuz that I earned, and I gave Kevin 50 zuz. Gavin actually has 100 zuz, and he gave Kevin 50 zuz. So Gavin's left with 50, I'm left with 50. Kevin has 100 zuz. And then what happens is the ox attacks again, Arthur's ox. Right. Now, Kevin was the last one to own the ox. He was the custodian. Or you could say he's the last one to have the ox, whatever. So Arthur's ox was worth 200 zuz. It's dead. That ox, the carcass, is worth nothing. Arthur is owed 100 zuz. So that 50 zuz comes from Kevin, who's the second victim. 25 zuz comes from me because I'm only a quarter owner. And then 25 zuz comes from Gavin, who's a quarter owner. And that's how Arthur gets his 100 zuz. So that clearly is all, each victim bears part of the responsibility for further gorings. Why? Because they're deemed as partners in the Titanic. Can you see that, guys?
Yeah.
They're all liable, yeah.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. I know it's obvious, Gav, but shame you all guys have had a long day, and I'm just sharing.
No, I didn't say obvious. I didn't say obvious. I said yes, we can see it.
Okay.
Say obvious. No, Damon, geez, definitely not.
All right, so I'm just.
You're also a bit dopey today. All right, cool.
Who's dopey?
You, not at all.
No, I'm not dopey at the moment.
Are you seem
Do I seem dopey?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay. I might be the dwarf sleepy at the moment, but I don't know about dopey. Maybe. Some days I'm dopey. I'm definitely
sleepy, grumpy, the other ones.
But don't say you're dopey, you'll get cancelled. It was something that was created doing white privilege. All right, guys, don't worry about it. All right, let's carry on.
Okay, so all right, I just want to share this chart a second, the screen, and then just revise you with Rabbi Akiva, because this is what this is the objection the Gemara is going to have, and I'm going to bring it to you now. Okay, if you have a look, Rabbi Akiva said that the damaged parties are partners in the ox, so the victims are partners, right? Which means, if we take that first incident in January, Gavin owns the ox that's worth 200 zuz. He damaged me. My dead ox is worth 200 zuz. Gavin gave me 100 zuz. He kept 100 zuz change. We're 50% partners in this ox. Fine. February, there's an incident. Okay, you guys can all see Feb. Okay, February, there's an incident. What happens is Kevin gets damaged as the second victim. His 200 zuz ox lays dead. We owe him 100 zuz. It's a tam ox. So 50% comes from whom? From Damon as the first victim, and 50% from Gavin as the original owner. Fine. Now what happens is the ox damages again, and it damages Arthur. Okay? Arthur's 200 zuz ox is dead. He's owed 100 zuz on the tam offense. Okay, 50 zuz has to come from Kevin as the last, as the biggest shareholder, and then 25% comes from me. 25 zuz comes from me because I'm a 12.5% shareholder, and so is Gavin. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah.
All right, that's fine, but this is the part I wanted to bring to your attention. It doesn't matter who the last custodian is. It has to do with percentage of partnership of shares. So what the issue is as follows, is that the Gemara is saying there's a problem because the second part of the Mishnah can't be, like Rava said, in accord with, Rava never said the second part of the Mishnah is in accord with Rabbi Akiva. He only said the first part of the Mishnah is in accord with Rabbi Akiva. So the Gemara is saying, well, how do you explain the second part of the Mishnah? Because clearly that's in accord with whom? Rabbi Akiva. Can you see that, guys?
It's closer.
Yeah. So the Gemara challenges Rava's response. How have you interpreted the Mishnah as being in accord with the view of Rabbi Ishmael? But if you consider the Mishnah's latter clause, Rabbi Shimon says, if an ox worth 200 zuz calls an ox worth 200 zuz and the carcass is worth nothing, the victim takes a manna, which is 100 zuz of the tam's value, and the original owner takes a manna of its value. If the ox again gores another ox worth 200 zuz, the owner of the last ox gore takes the manna of the tam's value, and those preceding him, in other words, the owner of the tam, and the first victim take 50 zuz each. This one takes 50 zuz, and that one takes 50 zuz. And if the ox again goes worth 200, and the thumb payment is worth 100, the last, the one preceding him has to take, in other words, the second to last victim takes 50 zuz. Why? Because he's a 50% shareholder. And then the first two, which are 25% shareholders, have to give 25 zuz apiece. Does that make sense? If it damages further, then they become 12.5% partners, and so on and so forth, until money runs out. So seemingly then, the Gemara is saying, the Mishnah follows the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, the second part. Because according to Rabbi Yishmael, the victims are not the owner's partners, but merely his creditors. And therefore, they shouldn't be responsible for any subsequent damage unless they are the custodian at that point. So the Gemara concludes its challenge. Do you wish to say that the Mishnah's first clause, in other words, Rabbi Meir's ruling, is in accord with Rabbi Yishmael, while its second clause, Rabbi Shimon's ruling, is in accord with Rabbi Akiva? Okay? The Gemara responds, they said, indeed, the Mishnah was formulated in this manner. For Shmuel said to Rav Yehuda, sharp one. So Shmuel always said to Rav Yehuda, he referred to him as sharp one, which is a compliment.
Okay.
His extreme analytical mind could find problems and solutions quicker than anybody else. They only call me sharp one if I've left a knife in my pocket. But obviously Rav Yehuda was a different level. So
any taxi rank, they'll say the same thing.
Pardon?
Any taxi rank, they'll say the same thing. No, they say sharp. So
oh yeah, they do. It's true. That's very funny. So the Mishnah was formulated in this manner. For Shmuel said to Rabbi Yehuda, sharp one, leave the Mishnah alone and follow me. The Mishnah's first clause is in accord with Rabbi Yishmael, and its second clause is in accord with Rabbi Akiva. So in other words, what Shmuel is saying is that you've got to desist from trying to resolve the two clauses of the Mishnah according to only one view. You can't say that they're both according to Rabbi Yishmael, and you can't say that they're according to Rabbi Akiva, because Rabbi Shimon cannot, the second part of the Mishnah, be according to Rabbi Yishmael, because those that are not custodians of the ox are not entitled to pay. So you can't reconcile it either way, according to the one opinion or the other. So what we're seeing here is it seems that Rabbi Meir is agreeing with Rabbi Yishmael, and Rabbi Shimon is agreeing with Rabbi Akiva. And we had the similar thing in the 15b, in the Gemara in 15b in Bava Kama, where we couldn't attribute the two clauses of the Mishnah to one opinion, but they had to be attributed to two different Tanaim. It's not the first time we've seen this. And it's not the first time Shmuel instructed Rav Yehuda that they can go according to two different Tanaim. Okay, so guys, I know we're ending early, but I think we're done for tonight. I don't know how you guys feel.
Can I ask a question? I read over that and I couldn't. It says the first clause and the second clause. It means the opinion of Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yishmael. That's what it means. And it says there was no.
No. So I'll explain to you exactly. I'm going to just. I think Kevin's asking a very good question. So I'm going to just share the page and explain.
There's no explanation. I've gone over it more than once. It's
no, Kev, I think it's a reasonable question, mate. Really a reasonable question. I'm going to share it with you now.
It's at the bottom. It's right at the bottom of all the text before the notes. That's where it is.
Yeah, that part. That's exactly it. So all I'm going to show you is as follows. Is if you go back to the Mishnah. Okay, the first part of the Mishnahs are the words of Rabbi Meir. Okay, it cannot be that Rabbi Meir is talking like Rabbi Akiva, because for a very, very simple reason, is that according to Rava's explanation of Rabbi Meir, is that you're not talking about a fractured partnership where they're dealing with shares and everybody's contributing to the last one damaged at all. And in fact, there's this discussion in the actual Gemara and saying, well, look, what happens to the original owner? Why does he have to pay the excess? And the Gemara is saying he doesn't. After he's damaged the first party, at the time of the trial, that money is taken away from him. And before it's paid to the first victim, we see how many other people were damaged, but he gets his change on what the animal's worth and he's told to go home. So Rabbi Meir is clearly according to Rabbi Yishmael. Okay? And the only reason that there was confusion as far as that's concerned is we didn't understand why the last victim got paid first. And what we're saying is, as Rabbi said, it was a case where each subsequent victim seized the ox for collateral because they didn't trust the owner that he wouldn't say it disappeared. And they didn't even trust that the other damaged parties wouldn't kidnap the ox and use it as collateral either. So it went down the line basically, and each one that looked after it failed to look after it properly and it caught somebody else. But if you look at the second part of the Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon, talking about how the different victims have to pay other victims as well as the original owner. The clue is that if you've got two victims paying a third victim, they're clearly partners. If you've got if you have one victim and the original owner paying another victim, they're clearly partners. If you've got multiple victims and the original owner paying a later victim, they're clearly partners. And that could only hold according to Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Shimon holds like Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Meir holds like Rabbi Yishmael. And that's the long and the short of it.
Shkak. That was good. I heard you.
Yeah, does it make sense, Kev?
Yeah, that's one of them. Why do they say it specifically? This clause and that clause? Is it because that's they both have different views on how damages have to be paid, and if the one considers it a partnership, then the damages they're liable. The owner of the ox and the damager are liable for every single subsequent damage in that case.
Yeah, so all Rabbi Shimon is saying is, look, this has nothing to do, this has absolutely nothing to do with a case of custodianship, according to Rabbi Shimon. Once you become damaged, if there's any excess left in the animal, you all are responsible for looking after it because you've got shares in it. And therefore, any subsequent damage, who's ever roped into this asset has to share the costs. But this is the benefit, is they only have to share the cost to the value of what that animal's worth. They don't have to pay extra out of their own pocket. So if eventually you run out of animal, they never gained anything in terms of recovery of their own ox that was damaged, because they were going to use that attacking ox as almost recovering some of their losses. That's gone out the window, but at least they don't have to pay from their own pocket. But they're shareholders and partners. As far as Rabbi Meir is concerned, it has nothing to do with that. He is following Rabbi Yishmael, and according to Rabbi, he's saying, listen, don't worry about the fact that the first one to be damaged is not the first one to be paid. We're talking about cases of seizing oxes and custodianship. So whoever seized the ox is the one that has to look after it. So, which means that the original owner, the minute another victim seizes it, the original owner is out of the picture here. And the minute the second victim seizes it from the first victim is out of the picture. The problem, though, is that if this is the case and the ox causes damage down the line, they might be out of the picture, but it doesn't mean that they're going to get paid. Because after the last one gets paid first, because he was the only one responsible for looking after his animal, there might not be money left for the others. There might, or there might not. That's all. So Rabbi Meir equals Rabbi Ishmael. Rabbi Shimon equals Rabbi Akiva in terms of opinion. And why they're bringing this forward, why Shmuel is bringing this to Rabbi Yehuda, is it's very rare this. And most of the time when you've got a Mishnah, it's written by one Tana. It's not written by two Tanaim. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's all.